It's time for Dr. Laura. I swear she's not gonna bore ya. For sexy advice, you don't have to think twice. Just say you're asking for a friend.
This month I have something really important to talk to you about. Every single year, the month of October is dedicated to domestic violence awareness. This is a hugely important topic, and something that we simply do not talk about in the LGBTQ community. When people go out and try to get resources, so many times the images that are portrayed are very much cisgender and heteronormative, and it can be really difficult to find resources that are understanding, compassionate, and inclusive of people who are on the queer spectrum. On top of this, it can be incredibly difficult to find resources and representation that understands how difficult it is to come forward about abuse when you've already had to come out. Many times as queer people, we have had to fight so hard to be our authentic selves, to love who we truly love, that when we finally get into one of those relationships, it seems impossible to then admit that something is unhealthy or unsafe. We already had to fight so hard to be who we are, that how are we going to now have to say that something isn't right without negating our positive experiences and our true authentic identity? When finding resources, I encourage you to look for ones that are connected to LGBTQ resource centers. The Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network is proud to be very inclusive and also offers a helpline for any kind of abuse or unsafe situation you may find yourself in. They can then direct you to local resources in your area. But on top of that, it is just simply challenging. Even when working with the police, so often the police have been trained in a lot of very biased and stereotyped dynamics. They come into a situation and they think that unless it's a guy hurting a girl and they're both cisgender and they're in a heterosexual relationship, they just don't know what the dynamics could possibly be. How could two men be hurting each other? Or if two women say that they're in a situation that's unsafe, who do they believe? The training on this that needs to be done is extensive. When we talk about domestic violence in the LGBTQ community, it's important to remember that the same standards for what is healthy and safe apply. Even if we don't see our relationships represented in a fair and equitable way, we still want to be aware of the cycle of abuse and what that looks like. Remember that in abusive dynamics, the abuser or person who is utilizing their position in the relationship to use unhealthy and unsafe methods to control or direct the relationship will always start out as being the person of your dreams. They're usually very charming, sweet, engaging. They're everything that you would not think an abuser to be. This is important to be aware of because so often we think that someone who's scary or cruel would come across that way in the beginning, but that is not the case at all. The next thing is that they'll try to isolate you. They'll put you against your friends, against your family. They'll tell you that they don't understand your relationship and that you need to be separated from them. Again, this is additionally hard when you're coming out. It's important to remember that even if your family has rejected you or a part of your community has not embraced your relationship, you still need to have outside support sources that you can speak to and check in with. The next thing that will happen is that isolation will increase and will become more and more controlling. They will dictate how things have to be, how things have to go. You will start to think about what might make them angry. You'll start guessing all of the ways that you might set them off. You'll feel like you're walking on eggshells, and you'll become hyper aware and attentive to every single thing that they do, just so that you can try to appease whatever it is that they want. The problem with this is that it never works. The next step is the explosive. Now, this might mean that the person actually physically harms you. They hit you, they take your keys, they try to use information against you and exploit you, maybe threaten to out you to a community that you aren't out to already. Now, this can also, again, be very much emotional. And it's really important to remember that abusive relationships and domestic violence does not only mean that you are being hit or kicked or having your hair pulled. All of those things can be included, but they are not domestic violence alone. If somebody is emotionally abusing you, threatening you, again, making you feel fearful, alone, that you don't know what they're capable of and you don't know what they're going to do next, that is an abusive relationship. As someone who's worked in domestic violence for a long time, I can tell you this without reservation. Many times when we review cases of domestic violence that ended in homicide, meaning one partner killed the other, or even attempted homicide, where that was their goal, we often find that there was no physical violence beforehand. It was all emotional. So often when people say, I feel unsafe, or I don't think this relationship is healthy, the first question they get asked is, well, did they hit you? And while this is well-intentioned, it does not tell us if that person is genuinely in danger. Someone may say they've never been hit and never been physically abused, but that emotional abuse can escalate to homicide without physical abuse in between. The last phase in this cycle is that everything's going to seem okay. It's called the honeymoon phase. So after the explosive phase, when something gets really scary and intense, the next thing that will happen is everything will seem so wonderful. The person will apologize, try to make things better. They'll say, I have issues, I'm working on them, please forgive me. The problem is, again, it goes around and around. Right after the honeymoon phase, they'll start to isolate you. After isolation, control. After control, another explosive episode, and back we go over and over again. Unless that person is actively seeking psychological support and help, things are just not going to get better. And that has to be a choice that they make on their own. I encourage you to reach out and find support both within the LGBTQ community and within the Survivor Support Network. These are really important resources, especially if you're having questions and you're not sure if something is unhealthy or abusive or what you should do about it. The decision to leave a relationship is never easy. Again, especially if you fought so hard to have an authentic relationship and be your authentic self. But getting help is always a better option than staying in something where you don't know what tomorrow might bring. I hope this was helpful. Please click on the resources below if you have further questions. And as always, I'm here when you're asking for a friend.
Like this video? Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Yeah, that one there. To get more Asking for a Friend each and every month. Email your queer sex questions anonymously to info@spectrumsouth.com. And don't worry, we know you're just asking for a friend. Cheers, queers!